When was this supposed to be?
1947. The question is whether or not we could do this if it were real.
The legs and the feet, and all that looks very good.
You see how uniform the blood is on the inside surface of the skin and the amount of drippage down the side where it's uniformly wet on the inside? But, I mean, we never are able to do that.
I'm often asked how difficult it is to fake a film. The answer is no. You cannot fake a motion picture that easily.
So first, guys, we will look at the actual footage, the original footage which was recorded. And after that, we will get into a deep dive of the analysis, how it could be faked, if it is even faked, and how all the people, experts react to it, and their honest opinion about it. So we will now look at the raw footage. This video was accordingly filmed in 1947, guys. So keep that in mind when we watch the footage. So guys, yes, that's it for the first main raw footage. Now there are a lot of questions and a lot of speculation, and you can't be 100% sure, of course. So now we're getting into the real stuff, you know, like they are going to analyze this.
The following program deals with controversial subjects. The theories, opinions, and beliefs expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
If what you're about to see is real, it's the most startling film footage in history. Although we remain skeptical, some experts believe this is authentic footage of an alien life form. Real or not, we must warn you. This appears to be an actual autopsy. And some of the footage you will see in the next hour is very gruesome. Stay with us as we put the question to you. Alien autopsy, fact or fiction?
Now we're gonna skip the first part because they are recapping the whole history and all the events that has happened. Most of you guys are probably aware of that, so yeah, you know, like it crashed, Roswell, you know, they covered it up, balloon, you probably know about, so we are going to get deep into the footage.
Here in the desert just outside Roswell is where the alleged crash happened some 50 years ago. Was it a flying saucer? Were there alien bodies on board? Or was it just a weather balloon, as the Air Force claimed? People still come and look for some kind of clue. But the evidence of the alien crash didn't come from here. It was revealed halfway around the world.
An alien autopsy is always going to be the subject of ridicule. Who's going to believe that an alien autopsy is an alien autopsy? It's just a ridiculous subject.
Ray Santilli owns a small music and video distribution company in London. He was acquiring some 1950s rock and roll footage when an elderly American cameraman he had been dealing with said, "By the way, I have something else to show you."
And, we looked at it, and it was just the most incredible piece of film. And obviously, my first impression is...
I know the guy, guys.
This can't be
I
real.
know him.
What
Not
Santilli saw
personally,
and
but I know
eventually
who he is.
purchased were reels of black and white film showing an autopsy being performed on a strange humanoid being. The cameraman, who claims to have had a top military clearance, told Santilli,
Yeah, he had top military clearance because he was born and raised in a dump, so-called, they call it dump, deep underground military base. Yeah, in a deep underground military base, like Area 51, for example. It's just one of thousands worldwide. Guys, you have to, everybody who's done their homework on this topic knows what I'm talking about. Like from Phil Snyder, for example, probably some of you heard his name. Like more than 1/3 of all our tax money in the US, not ours, I'm from Germany, but probably even from Germany, not capping, like more than 1/3 of all taxpayers' money goes into building deep underground military bases like Area 51, and many of them are as large as whole cities. I mean, like metropole cities, like freaking New York or something. So don't underestimate this information. But what I wanted to tell you is that the dude, which I'm going to reveal, was born and raised as a clone, like a clone in those cloning facilities. He was born and raised and educated on all these topics, and he was like a worker for them, just like an operational dude. So he was at the time where they recorded the footage, he was 14 years old, and he did a lot of other things and investigations, and he was, like he himself calls, and how they internally calling it, he was a man in black. Like, you imagine it, investigating paranormal stuff like vampire encounters and other things of the third kind and stuff. Probably you know what I mean. But I don't want to go too much off topic, so let's continue.
that in 1947 he was flown urgently to Roswell, where he filmed the recovery of several of these beings, both alive and dead, as well as the autopsy of one of them.
He set aside...
So he said an elderly man, so this logic makes sense, he's old by now. And he actually passed away not long ago, so facts about that, but yeah. Let's look.
And canisters of film which he felt there were problems in processing, and they needed special treatment during processing. The rest he sent straight back to Washington. And when he eventually processed the remaining canisters, he tried and went to great lengths to try and get Washington to come and pick the reels of film up, but they didn't. He kept it in a cardboard box, simple as that, and he kept it in his archive. The question of, well, is it a hoax, then goes back to the incident itself. What he saw was a disc, a flying disc that had crashed. It was on his back. He saw all these creatures that he calls freaks laying outside of the vehicle, screaming in pain for most of it. But he can't tell you where they came from. He doesn't know. While I was in his house, and as you would expect with anyone of that age, he's got a great deal of memorabilia. There's photographs on the wall, there's his photo albums, there's his diary. I mean, you can see his enrolment papers, his discharge papers, and he seemed a genuine enough person.
So why is Santilli unwilling to reveal the cameraman's identity?
Our agreement with the cameraman was to protect his privacy, which is how we acquired the footage.
Surprise,
in the first place.
surprise.
If he can get some kind of assurance that he's not going to be hounded by people, he may want to come out. I don't know. He may be watching this program right now and thinking, "What am I going to do?" His concern is, firstly, he's in his 80s. He just wants a peaceful life. That's the first thing. Secondly, he's accepted money, which is cash, and what effect is that going to have in terms of his tax position as well?
I think the pressure will increase upon him. I think he'll realise that if he is telling the truth, and I've no reason to doubt that, if this was, a crash of a space vehicle from wherever, that it is the most momentous event in human history, and he owes it to mankind to tell his story.
I'm going to bet you, and I've been doing this business for 30 years, that this man probably lives somewhere in Florida.
In order to verify the existence of this cameraman, we turned to world-renowned investigator William C. Deere.
When you all brought me this case to take a look at, I have to tell you, I was quite skeptical. Is there a cameraman? Does he really exist? Did he exist? And can I find him?
The answer really lies with the cameraman. That's where the answer lies, in trying to authenticate this film one way or the other.
We've satisfied ourselves that the footage is genuine. You know, it's not a question of the Hitler diaries or a situation like that. All we're doing is we're placing it into the public domain and saying, look, here it is, please investigate us.
You are watching the autopsy of what some say is an alien from outer space. Though silent, the 17-minute film is as dramatic as any science fiction thriller to come out of Hollywood. But this may not be a filmmaker's fantasy. This could very well be real. The strange body appears intact, except for an ugly wound on the right thigh.
And you will understand
Two mysterious
why.
doctors wearing contamination suits study its bizarre features. A third person wearing a mask watches from behind the glass partition. Is this indeed a top-secret military autopsy performed on an alien in 1947? Like with any mystery, we need to hear from witnesses, examine the hard evidence, and bring in the experts. First, the eyewitnesses.
Daddy said they looked like a small 10-year-old child. The head was too large for the body, and the skin color was a pink with a kind of a gray cast to it. Of course, you can't tell skin color in this, but the size, the shape of the eyes, that would all pretty well fit.
Of course, this could all be a story that the cameraman made up. An eyewitness testimony is sometimes unreliable, especially when it's almost 50 years old. What clues can we examine to determine whether what we're seeing is a true historical document or a clever fabrication? We've looked closely at some of the objects in the room. Our purpose? To determine whether they even existed in 1947. The wall clock, a General Electric model, is indeed from the 1940s. And that black phone with the heavy receiver and the curly cord is a Bell Standard model from 1937. Though they could all be purchased later, their presence in the room is nonetheless consistent with the time period. That brings us to the film itself. Can it be dated? We took the film to Larry Cate, who spent 16 years in the manufacturing division of Kodak.
Eastman Kodak Company, in trying to distinguish the age of the film, keeps track of the date of manufacture, and this is done through geometric codes. And the symbols on the edge code were a square and a triangle, which were used in Rochester, New York by Eastman Kodak Company to denote the following years of manufacture, 1927 or 1947 or 1967.
So the film stock itself could be from 1947. What about the way it was shot? What can the very look of the film reveal about its authenticity?
It would make much sense to think that, yes, this film could have been shot in the late 40s, early 50s.
Paolo Kerke-Uze is senior curator of motion pictures at Eastman House in Rochester, New York.
I'm often asked how difficult it is to fake a film. The answer is no. You cannot fake a motion picture that easily. It would require an amount of technical know-how, of sophistication, that would make the operation not worthwhile.
What we're seeing here is somebody photographing this, intentionally letting the image go out of focus. It just doesn't make sense that he would go in and make no adjustment on the focus.
The fact that it lost focus is consistent with the type of equipment that they had to be using.
Roderick Ryan knows as much as anyone about what it was like filming for the military in the 1940s. A combat cameraman for the Navy, he photographed the most secret government projects during the 40s and 50s, including the atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll.
The cameras in general use at that time by the military were Filmo cameras made by Bell & Howell. The camera did not have through-the-lens focusing, so if it maintained focus, there could be the possibility that it was done with modern-day equipment, which you can maintain focus.
So in other words, if he would focus and it would be focused, it would be an indicator that it could be faked, you know? So it is good that there is no focus, like according to the time period.
That it was simulated rather than real footage from 1947.
Davio was also suspicious of the film's authenticity because of the photographer's apparent inability to get the best shots.
There's one case in particular where they're sawing the skull, where the person operating the camera continuously moves to a place repeatedly that he's not going to see anything, the doctor's back, and doesn't make the effort to go around the other side to look at the saw coming towards you and perhaps get a better view.
He keeps moving
Right.
to keep out of the way of the surgeons. If you look at the surgical crew, they're moving also, and he's just trying to be inobtrusive.
We've had this out with the cameraman because, if nothing else, his integrity in terms of camera work is the only thing that's actually forced the comment out of him, because people have criticised the camera work. The cameraman was dressed in the same outfits as the surgeon, so he was restricted in his movement. And he said that the handheld camera was standard issue at that time, and they didn't treat it any different.
So you have like
and,
the same from two different sources. One military guy who was a cameraman, like literally a cameraman, just stated that they all got standard issued cameras, like even on the atom bomb tests, etc. So they don't treat them differently. And the same dude that was in contact with the person says the same. He says the same. So you know, it makes sense.
An experiment or an alien creature.
The role of a photographer in the military is usually to record an event. It is not his job.
Man, that dude looks like
usually
True Patriot, man. He looks like the father of Donald Trump.
It is not his job to do pretty pictures. And this, I think, was a very adequate job of recording an event.
I will say that there's some terrific work done here, but I do not believe that this is a real event that I'm seeing.
Every fake I've seen, the impression of fake comes up immediately. Let's put ourselves in the position of someone who decides to make a fake. Why in the world someone would invest such an amount of money, of effort, of mise-en-scène to put together a 23-minute film of this kind? It defies reason. It doesn't make sense.
Let's say the film is from 1947. Kodak says that's possible. And it looks like an Army photographer could have shot it. That doesn't mean this isn't a hoax. But how far would someone have to go to stage it? Camera tricks are one thing.
Man, I
How do you
love
fake
this
the
dude.
flesh and blood body
I don't understand why this video has not more views. I really don't.
of an alien, especially one that's about to be cut open? Is this really an autopsy of an alien being? Or could it be something else? A dummy? A deformed human? An incredible hoax? To find out, we showed the film to two of the world's leading pathologists. And I have to issue a warning at this point. What you are about to see is extremely graphic. Chris Milroy is a senior lecturer in forensic pathology at the University of Sheffield in England. His expertise in determining the cause of death has made him a sought-after witness in murder cases around the world. Cyril Wecht is a past president of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. This strange creature that some are saying comes from outer space does fit the popular conception of what an alien looks like. The huge head and enlarged eyes are familiar from books and movies about otherworldly visitors. And it has other bizarre features not common to humans.
There are 6 fingers on each hand, and there are also 6 toes on each foot, a condition known as polydactyly. And that's seen in various kinds
So
of
guys, just to
chromosomal
give a little
or
bit
genetic.
of background information, everybody of you who is a little bit deeper into this topic probably knows, but there are different kinds of those greys, and there are reptilians and there are other ones like the Aryan ones, like the ones that Hitler tried to recreate, which actually exist. See at Admiral Byrd if you want to know more about that. But yeah, these greys there are in different sizes. They are very large. I mean, look like the Miami incident, how people describe them. There are very tall ones, there are the small ones. What I guess from my research is that it was like almost 100 years prior that there had like that these were prototypes of their genetic engineering. So to be a little bit preciser, these beings are literally spiritual beings who wanted a host body with the best characteristics of a human. This is why this dude and others are calling them humanoid, because these Satan and his minions literally, why are they abducting people? Because they needed experimentation and genetic material to create a hybrid to reincarnate. And guys, this sounds like Alex Jones or something, but trust me, that's facts. They tried to incarnate their demonic entities, so it's not really aliens. I mean, you could say they are aliens, but they are literally created on this earth. So they are literally wanted to incarnate their spiritual beings into bodies, and they wanted something that's like superior to humans. That's why they have like telekinesis and other abilities. Like there are, from what I heard, there are like one of those greys are smarter than like a couple hundred of people or more. So yeah, they have optimized this process till the day now. So these was, like I said, 100 years ago, so we're looking at an older example of the greys.
As respected teachers, both Wecht and Milroy have trained hundreds of doctors. They know how a real autopsy is conducted versus what would give away an amateur or even an actor.
They are either pathologists or they're surgeons who have done a fair number of autopsies. This supposedly was filmed in 1947, and while things haven't changed, we see some things that would have been expected at that time, such as the use of a handsaw in removing the skull cap. I should also like to point out that this kind of a rectangular-shaped, somewhat sunken tray was the kind that I recall being around many, many years ago. We don't see these things around very much today, if at all.
The basic procedures that were being carried out are those that one would do in an autopsy. There are certain questions that I have to ask about the procedures. I mean, if this is purportedly an alien, I question whether you would just spend 2 hours on it. One would surely spend weeks, months, if not years, dissecting.
So first, you don't know if this even was their first autopsy, you know? Like, maybe it's like the 100th alien or something. So maybe for them it's just like, yeah, a normal day at the office. So literally for what's surreal for one person is literally bread and butter for the next one. So I don't know.
That would explain why the doctors are protecting themselves with contamination suits. And radiation could be the cause of the being's death, and also its freakish deformities. Remember,
these beings in general are radioactive in themselves, and that they have a very, very strong smell of sulfur. In other words, they smell like rotten eggs. I mean, like badly, so badly that you could smell it from a mile apart. According to Phil Snyder, by the way. Everybody who wants to know more about Phil Snyder, please look in the description. I give you a couple of videos of him. He was actually killed. He encountered some of those greys, and he actually killed a couple of those with a gun. Very, very, very interesting stories that he has. In my eyes, definitely legend, so please check that out. It's mind-boggling.
Of course, another explanation is that this is not the body of a flesh and blood being at all, but rather a man-made creation designed to fool whoever sees it. How hard would it be to make a dummy that bleeds so convincingly? No one is better at tricking the public that monsters can be real than Stan Winston, whose company has created some of the most lifelike creatures to come out of Hollywood. He built the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and appropriately enough, the extraterrestrial predators of aliens. For Winston, recreating a simple humanoid like this should be a piece of cake.
My initial reaction when I first saw the piece was that it was not real, that it was a body that someone had created as a prop. When we started the autopsy and actually cutting this body open, And knowing how difficult it is for us in the live effects world to actually simulate cutting skin, I started looking at it and saying to myself, if in fact this isn't real, I would be real proud of creating an image like that myself today. In fact, I want to talk it over with some guys here in the studio as to how we would do that.
When was this supposed to be?
1947. The question is whether or not we could do this if it weren't real. And let's take it back to just before the cut.
The organic quality of the legs and the feet, and all that looks very good.
You see how uniform the blood is on the inside surface of the skin and the amount of drippage down the side where it's uniformly wet on the inside? But, I mean, we never are able to do that. All right, let's fast forward it to the skull. Yeah, this is pretty incredible if it's a built prop. Point is if we did this, I'd be pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
This is what I find most interesting.
Yeah, it's very real.
Is the peeling of this skin and how to create this.
Sorry to interrupt.
Exactly. And how
But like, just look at their faces. Man, those dudes are specialized on that, and even they are like, what the fuck? What if this is real? Like, interesting. But yeah.
How to create that on a skull
is to cast the skull inside the skin.
But what about the wetness?
And what about the unevenness of it? It's not like it's been
And
cored.
what about the bleeding of it, the wetness of it that is not, you don't see tubes spurting, you don't see blood drip, it's just all evenly wet.
What materials are out there that will duplicate skin like that? I mean, it's mostly the silicones that we're using now, specially formulated
exactly.
silicones, and
They didn't
I don't
have
know
those in
who's-
1947.
No,
did
no, they didn't. And anybody that's got access to them now has been out there doing a lot of big-time Hollywood monster movie stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know how they did this. If it's been done today to look like it was done then, it would be a many, multiple thousands of dollars.
I understand, even if it wasn't made to look period. I mean, just to do this properly would be really...
Be very expensive. And my hat's off to the people who created it, or to that poor alien that's dead on that table.
Our search for the cameraman is continuing. Here's what we know so far.
We have a white male. We know he's 82 or 83 years old currently. We know when he entered the service. We know that he was in the service for 10 years.
With a detailed profile constructed, Bill Deere set his team of investigators in motion.
Yeah,
That's going to be a really
look
important
for you
thing for us to find.
They tried to find him, etc., but they never made a further statement, so I guess they didn't find him. So yeah, I think at that time he didn't want it to be found.
Is the body we've seen really a victim of a fatal accident that happened almost 50 years ago? Did a UFO crash and burn in the New Mexico desert? Could aliens have been curious about our newly developed nuclear technology? What does the government know? And what aren't they telling us? We'll never know until the secrecy surrounding the Roswell incident finally ends.
I'm positive that there's information being withheld from the public domain concerning the Roswell.
Well, duh.
I'm hoping that they will someday release the information.
Tell us what actually happened.
The witnesses to this still puzzling event kept their promises and remained silent for decades. Many lived in fear of the very government to which they now turn for answers. Stephen Schiff, congressman from New Mexico, has taken up their cause. His mission? To persuade the military, FBI, and other agencies to finally come clean.
When I sent the first request to the Secretary of Defense for a response about the Roswell incident in view of the fact that there were these accusations, essentially of a government cover-up, the response I got was a very terse letter that said in about a sentence or two from the Air Force, we referred your letter to the National Archives, and that's all it said.
If it's a true document, it is a document of exceptional importance. If it's a fake, it should be hailed as one of the most extraordinary fakes ever put together by a filmmaker.
Was this a real encounter with another civilization? A bizarre human experiment gone wrong? Or an elaborately staged production? We don't claim to have the answer. But by consulting with film experts, eyewitnesses, pathologists, and some of Hollywood's top movie makers, we've given you an opportunity to hear from all sides. Is this alien autopsy really fact or fiction? Until we know more, you'll have to decide.
Man, goosebumps, yeah. I mean, sure, even I am not for 100% like convinced. So who could tell that? But I guess it's real. I mean, it makes sense. Like just the logic behind it and my own eyes, it makes sense. So I mean, guys, let me know what you think, and if you have further information on that, I would like to go deeper into that. But from what I think, it could be literally real. Yeah. So guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I have all the links from the original video and more on the topic, and Phil Snyder and this documentary as well. So please, if you're unsure, watch it again and make your own assumptions, and let me know if you think it's real or not, and why. So yeah, I don't claim I'm right in everything, but yeah. So I hope we see each other on the next video. If you like it, please check out my channel, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. And till that day or that minute, I wish you the very best, and God bless your soul. And yeah, take care, and we will see each other.